Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to an all-new reaction and review. Tonight, guys, we are going to continue to count down to episode 100 by covering the movies that lost the vote. Now, you see, I really guess I'm going to have to explain this again for people who are just finding me for the first time through this video. I had a poll up for what movie to cover for episode 100. I had 4 candidates. You basically just had to vote by essentially watching an unlisted video thanking you for voting for that one movie, and I counted, and those view counts are the votes. Now, last time I covered Mazes and Monsters, which came in 4th place. Tonight's film came in 3rd and only beat Mazes and Monsters by 5 votes. I'm looking at the view count right now. It beat it by 5 votes. That is how close it was between these two. Mind you, there's a huge jump between 3rd and 2nd, but I'm going to talk about that when I cover what came in 2nd place. Tonight's film stars Sean Connery, came out in 1974. The movie is Zardoz. Now, I should mention, I know nothing about this film. Yes, I actually could have read everything which is on the back here, but I didn't want to. Alright? Why? Because I am a lazy bastard and I just don't care. I've only seen a single scene from this film. It's a giant stone head proclaiming that the gun is good and the penis is evil. I don't know what the fuck that is supposed to mean. There is probably a little bit more meaning to it than that. However, it also could just be that it's a stone head that has a thing against dicks, which sounds almost creepy, but I'm not going to get into that right now. Now, this film's actually a little bit of a weird thing, because I've heard a lot of people talk about it, and most people will say one of 2 things when it comes to Zardoz. They will either say that the film is a complete pile of shit and that no human being should have to watch it, and others will say that it is a delightfully corny sci-fi flick. Now, I'm about to find out if it actually is one of those 2 extremes, or maybe it'll be genuinely good. However, since I just mentioned, it has a giant stone head that basically announces its hatred of penises, I really don't think that genuinely good is really an option right now. But there's only one way to find out. So, without further ado, it's time to kick back, relax, and check out Zardoz. Okay, so we have some dude here who looks to have a pair of shorts on his fucking head and his Sharpie scribbled all over his face. I never thought I would say this early into a fucking film. I am absolutely lost, guys. I am literally rendered fucking speechless by what the fuck I just saw floating around on the goddamn screen. That was just little bit off-putting, I guess. Wow. Okay, guys. So far, here's everything I have picked up. Connery was hitching a ride on a giant stone head. He has now found himself on a hippie-like commune, which has horrible spelling, and the only thing that he has on him is a Speedo and a pair of bandoliers. This whole movie is rather confusing and creepy as hell. And it's creepy simply because I don't know what the fuck's going on. Alright, guys. So far, I believe I can sum up this film for you. If you were to take Planet of the Apes, you were to replace the apes with really irritating, snobby psychics, you would have Zardoz. I wish I was fucking kidding, but that actually is kind of sort of how this breaks down. To some, that would probably be a good thing. I didn't care for the Planet of the Apes movie, so this is sort of rubbing me the wrong way just a little bit. You know, guys, this film is really starting to get kind of dull. And I just noticed something. Everybody in this movie, except for Connery, are wearing women's clothes. I am not kidding you guys. The men in this, like, planet or vortex of psychics or whatever the fuck, they are all wearing women's blouses. All of a sudden, I'm not able to take them as seriously because, well, all of them are essentially trannies. That's actually kind of funny, but it doesn't help the fact that this movie is slowly starting to drain me a little. Okay, you know, actually seeing a floating book would probably have been a lot cooler if you couldn't clearly see the wires that were, hanging it. Otherwise, well, the scene would have been cool, but why the hell did they have to use such visible wires on that? It's just, yeah, like everything else here looked, really good, but now that is probably one of the worst effects I've seen in the history of this series. Second only to the shit from Birdemic, but I don't think anything will ever top that in terms of shitty effects. I am sorry, guys. I was just floored by that horrible effect of the fucking floating book. It's just bugging the shit out of me now. Guys, I actually kind of thought I'd see a lot of goofy shit in this movie. Never thought I'd see Sean Connery in a wedding dress. That one is definitely new and a little bit odd and kind of creepy. Guys, I totally understand. This film is from 1974, and films in the 70s were all trying to be trippy and weird and shit, but I do not think that there's any amount of acid in the fucking world to make this movie make any level of sense. Thank you, God. Thank all the heavens. This shitty thing is done. Wow, it doesn't even have any, closing credits. That is not normal. Well, good news is I can just shut this fucker off. I don't have to worry about a thing. Now let's discuss the film, shall we? Let's talk about Zardoz here for a moment. First of all, I want to start with the writing. The writing is probably where I'm going to do most of my complaining, so I might as well get it done with now. The story had a lot of promise. It really did. Buried deep in this shit pile, I actually found something that could be seen as a glimmer of hope. A glimmer of hope had the script been written by somebody who wasn't a brain dead retard. By the way, who wrote this thing? Just John Boorman. Oh. John Boorman, fuck you, man. You wrote this thing, and you directed it, and you produced it. How the fuck did you think this was a good movie? I mean, okay, yeah, now, as I stated, you had a story that was really promising. And then you completely kneecapped it by throwing in a ton of trippy bullshit that really didn't have to be there. And I swear to God, there are huge chunks missing here because the story will basically jump around, and it feels as if there's something missing. I really have a feeling that they really only had the budget to maybe film a part of the script. Either that, or else this thing started off as a fucking 4-hour film, and it was trimmed down to 1 hour and 45. Thus, there's a ton of shit missing, and the story suffers because of it. Either way, this film does not feel finished. It feels as if there's a ton of story missing, which might actually have aided in, the film actually being a little bit better. Either that, or Mr. fucking Boorman here is just a really shitty, writer, and I shouldn't be having faith that there's some reasonable excuse for this thing being as stupid as it fucking was. Okay. Speaking of all of the trippy bullshit, let's talk about the lighting. Because you see, a lot of times in this film, they go for trippy, I'd almost want to say psychedelic style lighting, and it is supposed to give you this, feeling of just being like weirded out and all this other shit. And really, it really only worked once. There was one scene where all of that goofy, trippy, experimental lighting actually worked. It worked really fucking well. And that is when Zed, that is Connery's character, is being taught all the knowledge of the world. And you will see these women, and they will have lit up on their face music or language or math, and then they touch him, and then the light like gradually moves from them onto him, showing that he is being taught. It looked really cool, and the scene was like a couple of minutes long. It really worked. But every other instance where they were trying to be trippy or they were trying something different, it really just brings the film to a screaming fucking halt. Speaking of screaming halts, going back to writing here for just a sec. The film starts off pretty good. It actually is a little bit weird. You really don't have a clue exactly what the fuck is going on. You're very slowly starting to pick up on it. They then give you a twist about 3/4 of the way through. And then the twist is immediately followed by I swear to God, it felt like a 10-minute chase scene. The chase scene was absolutely unneeded, except to show you that this fucking society is completely going to shit. But really, it just brought the entire film to a screaming halt, and it wasn't worth it. There was absolutely no reason for it to, stop that suddenly just for a chase scene to show us that this seemingly perfect society is going to hell. It really was not needed, and it should not have been there. Costumes. Well, I stated, everybody in this vortex, in this perfect world, are wearing women's clothing, which tells me that John Boorman, because again, he was also the producer of this fucking thing, probably only had access to women's clothing and said, okay, guys, you are just going to have to make do with, heels, tights, and skirts. Just deal, okay? So yeah, costuming looks to have been done ridiculously cheap, and Zed, again, that's, for those of you not keeping up, that is, Connery's character, is from the Outlands, and he is what is known as an exterminator. They are the only ones who actually have genuine costumes, which basically consist of a red Speedo and a pair of bandoliers that crisscross over the chest. Most of them also wear a stone mask, which looks exactly like the head of Zardoz. All right, that's really it in terms of genuine costuming, because everybody else is just wearing women's clothing, which means that about half of the cast is in drag. But then again, that actually shouldn't even matter. Now, let's talk about the acting. First of all, some people know this and other people don't. Sean Connery is known as one of the hammiest actors in film. He usually is mentioned in the same breath as people like William Shatner and Brian Blessed. It's really saying a lot then when a hammy acting master like Connery turns in the most subdued performance in this fucking movie. Apparently everybody else attempted to out-ham him, and it gets to levels that are way too hammy even for me, which is saying a lot because I love hammy, cheesy flicks. But this shit is too much for me, alright? However, I'm going to once more go after the writing on that, because really there's only so much you can fucking do when your script is this bad. When your script stinks this fucking much, you have to do something just to stay sane. And if that something is just hamming it up to, levels where it's almost a fucking joke, then so be it. I honestly am not going to sit here and try to defend beyond that. So, is there anything else worth covering? Camera work was fine. There really was nothing really special there. Really, good God, it is so hard to recommend this thing. If you can find it on Netflix and you want to kill an hour and 45 minutes or so, go ahead. Go ahead, watch it there. you know, because hey, who knows? Because you know, you guys might actually kind of sort of enjoy it. Me, I honestly am not into the, you know, I'm really not into the psychedelic shit. That's probably because I don't do fucking drugs, and you'd probably have to be high on, you'd probably have to be high on a whole host of different fucking drugs at the same time in order for this thing to even begin to look good. I really cannot recommend it to anyone else beyond that. So yeah, essentially, stoners. If you are really looking for a trippy film to watch, watch the next time you opt to get fucking high, yeah, look for Zardoz. You will probably absolutely adore it. Everybody else, your best bet's probably to avoid it. Now, Zardoz came off the Amazon wish list. The person who sent in this little gem is a guy who sent a lot of films in. His name is, or rather his YouTube screen name is Medio Surreal, and as always, I'm going to provide a link to his YouTube channel. Dude, thank you, I guess, because, well, I have always been sort of curious about whether or not this thing was any good, and, well, you know, sometimes curiosity just sucks. And that's sort of the case when it comes to Zardoz. Now, as you guys can see, we got 2 more films here, which you guys voted on for episode 100. One of these is going to be our next episode, which is number 99. That then leaves us down to episode 100, and as I stated last time, most of you already know what episode 100 is, because, well, most of you know exactly what you voted for, so, yeah. But you guys are going to have to find out that in the next couple of videos. I really hope that those next few are going to be rather entertaining, and I really hope that at least one of them is able to be good, because so far I've had to suffer through fucking Zardoz, and I almost fell asleep watching Mazes and Monsters. So these fucking other 2 have got to give me something. And looking at it, I see a slightly promising comedian who actually didn't want us to watch his movie, and a pop act who I fucking wish ill. So yeah, my hopes are kind of low on the next 2 being any good, but hey, stranger things have happened. So with that, we come to the close of another reaction and review. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care, and I will see you all in the near future. Peace.